Welcome to this episode of Sunny's Silver Linings. Sunny's guest today is Bob Coppedge, CEO of Simplex-IT. Bob is known for his uncanny ability to take complicated topics and break them down into simple, relatable components. In this episode, he talks about co-managed IT, serving the underserved market, how cybersecurity is an infinite game, and so much more. And now, your host, the founder and CEO of IT by Design, Mr. Sunny Kala. Over to you, Sunny.
Bob, thank you so much for joining me as my guest today.
Thanks for inviting me. Should be fun.
And it was lovely meeting you at Kaseya Connect. And I know we have had some conversations, and it was great to spend some time with you there in Vegas and getting to know you. And I'm like, it will be a great opportunity for us to have this conversation and share this with the world. And thank you.
No, I appreciate the invite. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and so the topic that we are discussing today is the overall, your take on cybersecurity, and you always talk about co-managed IT, and you're doing that a lot, and you're very intentional about your approach as MSP to serve that underserved market. And I want to talk about that a little bit. So let's start with the cybersecurity piece. What's your take on cybersecurity at a macro level?
So first of all, my take on cybersecurity is that and I think this is one of the biggest issues, it's what I call an infinite game. And what I mean by that is it's not going to go away. And the cybersecurity approach or strategy for 2021 is different than 2022, is different than 2023, is different, so on and so forth. And the reason being is because we're up against entrepreneurs. And so often, especially on the MSP side, we get so caught up into the weeds of what's the specific strategy for this specific risk and the specific threat and so on and so forth, which is absolutely critical and totally beyond my brain for understanding it. But the fact of the matter is that whatever our solution is today for either ourselves or for our clients, it's going to be different a year from now. And one of the things we have to make absolutely sure is that we communicate that effectively both to our organizations and to our clients, because so often, if you look at all the other big items that we've had in the past, virtualization, backup, business continuity, disaster recovery devices, cloud, all of those, it pretty much was we can implement that solution and okay, we're done. That solution is in place. We can now move on to the next challenge. Cybersecurity is not going to be that way, because the bad guys are going to come up with new threats because they're financially motivated to come up with new threats. And every time we come out as an industry with new ways of people to do business, the bad guys are going to be right there for the best way for them to take advantage of those business. So we have to understand, that's why I call it the infinite game. There's no end score, there's no final, there's no nothing until the business model, the way the bad guys are making money, until that is eliminated, it's just not going to stop.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, Bob, is that it's the entrepreneurial competition that the bad actors are building their businesses. Their overall life, entrepreneurial life, is to do that and make money. And and then good guys are trying to safeguard networks and information that they are responsible to safeguard. And so it's a competition. And when there's a competition, entrepreneurial competition, then what comes to my mind is talent wins wars, teams, right? And if there is some kind of war going on between two armies, and so it comes to talent and tools and trainings on that subject. So when we talk about cybersecurity talent, cybersecurity tools, especially let's talk in the context of MSPs and the businesses that we serve. So let's start with cybersecurity talent, for example. There is no cybersecurity talent available, and I think unemployment is minus as per CompTIA recent report. And so in the MSP world, having access to quality talent to make sure that we can fight against bad actors is a major challenge. How do you see it, and what do you think are the strategies that MSPs can use to make sure that they have the right army to fight?
First of all, they'll never have the right army. There's always going, because we're always going to need more, we're going to need different. But the first thing is to put it in perspective. And that is, think of it from the client's standpoint. They have even less of a chance of hiring good cybersecurity resources than we do. And that's something we should always be communicating to our potential clients, is that you may not have resources. We've got these resources. We've got these, and my people are able to be completely dedicated to cybersecurity, those people over here, as opposed to if you have internal IT, you have one person. Are they going to be able to do everything? No. And there's always, one of the concepts is always be hiring. You're always looking for good talent, always be training. You should always be able to look at your staff and essentially say, I am providing resources, compensation, rewards, whatever you want to call it, to increase your skill set. I don't care who the person is, whether it be a office manager, to a level 1 tech, to a level 3 tech, to a CISO, to any of these folks. You should always be providing resources to make your team better, because at the end of the day, that's your non-commodity go-to-market are your people. And you want the people to be staying who are contributing the most and who are providing the most value. And you also want to be able to go out and say to the potential employees, this is, you come here, you're going to be nurtured, you're going to be improved, you're going to be rewarded. So you got to keep that culture going.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that perspective, where a small business, they cannot have in-house core competencies, cloud engineer, email system related engineering to cybersecurity, right? So as a small business, you don't have that budget to make sure that you have IT generalists and then you have subject matter experts. But as MSPs, because that economy of scale and everything that we use, we have a lot more buying power. We have a lot bigger budget to make sure that we have IT generalists and SMEs of all these core competencies that we need to serve that small business, right? Now, there's one more question there, that when it comes to talent wars, MSPs are competing with bigger brands. It could be Google's of the world and Apple and all these bigger companies, right? So that's where, if there is a cybersecurity engineer available in the market, and he has two offers, one from MSP and another from Google or any other bigger company, Fortune 5000, you can call it.
Right.
And so, of course, there are always different kind of needs. Sometimes people do want to work for SMB, not a bigger brand, but normally they gravitate towards bigger brand. So how do you see it, and how do we address that challenge?
Well, I think first of all, don't fight it. From the standpoint, if someone really wants to work at a Google or a Fortune 500, let them. Wish them the best. Go for it. Go in peace, my son or daughter, whichever way it goes. Because I think we try sometimes to fit round pegs into square holes and vice versa. But if you want to play with the whole game, because if you go to those places, you're going to be a cog in the wheel. And hey, you want to be a cog in the wheel, that's absolutely great, because it's of the wheel of a fantastic, huge machine. But if you come here, you're going to be able to work on all aspects. You're going to be able to take part in all of the security resources, all of the games, all of the vendor relationships. You're going to grow and you're going to work on things that you will not be able to owing to the nature of the size of that beast. And you're going to be treasured by being that role. And you're going to have opportunities to learn, to train, all of that. So you can create something that if there's a little bit of I'll almost call it an entrepreneurial spirit. If there's more of I don't want to just be in that big machine mindset, that's going to appeal to that person.
Yeah.
You have to fight against the stereotype of it's a small company. They're never going to pay you for any training. You're going to be worked to death. You're not going to be appreciated. You've got no vertical growth. Those are the stereotypes of small businesses. Yeah. And you have to fight against those. First of all, you have to fight to make sure that isn't you.
Yeah.
And especially these days, there are a ton of resources out there. We're in the state of Ohio, and the state of Ohio has a lot of resources available for me as a business owner, small business owner, to actually provide great training to my employees, and the state will refund my money.
Yeah, so let's stay on training for a little bit. But before we get into the training, cultivating that talent, how as MSPs we can do that, add value to our team members. One thing that we use here at IT by Design, Bob, is because our offices are in. So we have global presence. We are here in New Jersey, and right next to New York City. When we look at overall, employer of choice perspective, we are kind of against a lot of bigger companies here in the New York City metro area. And in our India office, we have all these big companies, American Express, Google, Apple, all these companies are in the same business park that we are in. In Philippines, all these bigger brands are there. So first of all, we changed our approach over years. As you said, first thing that we want to really understand there is that person built for a bigger company or our size business? What is their interest? What is their desire? Because you don't want to work against someone's overall their vision of success. You want to understand their vision of success and where they want to go, where they will see value. Once we understand that, and then we explain and help them get better clarity on IT by Design versus Google's, is that, hey, you're not going to be just a number. And you're not going to be just kind of doing that piece, that Active Directory password reset all day long. And that's where our competitors there, from the talent competitors' point of view, they will have someone work at their service desk, and they will have that L2 engineer do all the password resets all day long. And here you're gonna get a broader perspective, a lot more exposure. You're gonna be able to work with the routing, the switching, the servers, cloud, all the cutting edge technologies, and you're going to get a lot more exposure to everything. And you will be a lot more working with the kind of leadership team, right? And you will be not just a number. People are going to know what is your favorite sports, what is your favorite, all the way up to the top level. And you're going to be gaining a lot more. You're going to get, first of all, a lot more responsibility and ownership and exposure. If that is something that you're looking for, then we are the right employer for you. If that's not what you're looking for, we're not. We just want you to know these are the differences. So to your point, very important to help the candidate understand that these are the differentiators, and then let them decide what is right for them. Now, let's go to the training piece that you were going to. Do you see any resources, or are you using any resources? Are you aware of any resources where, as MSPs, we can use those training resources to help our team members develop?
I guess it kind of depends on whether we're talking about soft skills. I mean, the answer is yes. And the bigger challenge we have is, how do you determine what the best resources are? Mm-hmm. Because I'm a big believer, science fiction author Theodore Sturgeon had what's called Sturgeon's Law, and that was 90% of everything is crap. And I honestly believe that. And I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing to say, but 90% of the resources that are available to us are really not going to work. for one reason or another. So we need to find out what works, both culturally and in terms of delivery and all of that, accountability, all that good fun stuff.
So from the technology trainings, so soft skills training, I understand that we can, the soft skills, and then the tech. So let's talk about the technical trainings. Do you have any recommendations for technology trainings? It could be cybersecurity training, it could be cloud training, it could be any kind of something that fits in our solution stack and our engineers need to be trained on.
So I can't give you specifics because they're regional, but we have companies that specialize in training, and I usually align it around specific certifications, whether they be Microsoft or Cisco or CompTIA or the like. But you look for those, MCITP, MCSE certifications. I can't remember the alphabet soup on all these things. I'm getting too old. Yeah. But you look for those, and that way it still is an industry or a vendor best practice type. Yeah. And one of the things we do is we have compensation that we give our employees for achieving certain certifications. And so they negotiate as part of the quarterly review process. And when I say review, not formal review, but more of a where are we going and how are we doing? And we're an EOS shop, entrepreneurial operating system. So we get into rocks, the rest of the world calls goals. So each of our technicians has a goal of some kind of competency or some kind of training they're going for. And then we try to find resources that we're willing to pay for it, and to a degree make time available during the day for them to actually do some studying and all of that kind of fun stuff. And then if they achieve those goals by taking and passing the certification, then we'll give them, depending upon the size and complexity, either just a one-time shot or an annual raise based on that, with the understanding that now we're going to give you those tickets because you're smarter and you're a greater value. So that's kind of worked for us. And again, in our case, there's a regional resource training center that does both virtual and in-house training for those certifications. That's worked for us.
And thank you for sharing that, because there was a recent survey on retention so what made you look for another job? Right? What made you take that first call from a recruiter? That was the question. And normally it was rolling up to learning and development that, I was not learning and growing. So I think one thing that we can do as entrepreneurs, as leaders, is that really helping our team members grow, right? Really investing into their learning and development, because when someone is learning, they feel that they are progressing, and progress leads to happiness and fulfillment. When we feel that we are a better version of ourselves today as compared to yesterday, then people feel happier. That so the training and the learning and development, giving them the resources that they need to learn and grow and get to the next level, is really important for retention. Now let's get into.
Let me push back on you a little bit on that one. And this is just to show you, because one of the terms I used to describe myself is I'm a crotchety old geek. And do I care about happiness? Yeah, I do, sort of, but not as much as people might think, despite my cheerful disposition. And the bottom line is, I want more productivity out of my group. And I don't want to replace everybody, because that would be ridiculously disruptive. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to buy a ton of new tools or implementation. So what's the best way I can increase productivity? Well, two things. Number one is make them smarter. And number two is hire people who want to be smarter. Mm-hmm. If you do those two things, I agree with you, all kidding aside. I agree that the happiness is a factor, the personal motivation is a factor, and all that. But besides happiness and contentment, it's going to increase the productivity of my group, and therefore my bottom line, because at the end of the day, we all want to do more with less.
Yeah.
We all want to improve productivity. And one of the best ways, what is it? Abraham Lincoln said, if I was going to be in a tree cutting contest, the first 2/3 of the time I'd spent sharpening my axe or something along those lines.
Yeah.
If why would you ignore training or improving the skill set of your people? As a CEO, that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you have heard about these 5 questions of role clarity that every single team member out there is looking for clarity to these 5 questions. And one of the question is, uh, having that clarity on how I'm contributing, how am I useful and helpful to achieve my company, to help my company achieve their objectives. When people feel productive and useful and helpful, and they know that as a result of their hard work and smart work, they are making a difference in the company's overall annual objectives and goals. Even productivity, the point is, even productivity leads to happiness, right? Because we all human being at the end of the day, we want to be helpful and useful, and we want to feel that we are productive, and that productivity is in alignment with is someone is appreciating that productivity, right? So I want to get into your most favorite topic, and I know you're big on this topic, which is co-managed IT. Because co-managed IT is a lot of our peers, our MSP peers, they are not very focused in that area, but you are. So I really want to talk about that topic. So talk to me. First of all, let's define co-managed IT so that everyone is talking with the same thing. So what's your definition of co-managed IT?
Co-managed IT, and it's actually, you're hitting the nail on the head right there, because there is no standard definition. Co-managed IT services is some form of managed service relationship with an organization that has internal IT resources, dedicated internal IT resources. And that's kind of very sweeping, very grand. But then it's up to the individual MSP to create what their offering is that fulfills that situation. And it's not a one size fits all. It's not, you cannot, just like in traditional MSP, you can't be everything to everyone, but you can be something to most.
Okay, I appreciate that. So co-managed IT, Bob, what I'm hearing you say is that when MSP teams, they are working with that internal IT department of a business to achieve to achieve their technology results, or so whatever their IT plan is, whatever their technology roadmap is, that their internal IT and MSP IT are working together to help that business achieve those objectives. And now I want to talk about the ideal customer profile first. So for MSP, right? So for MSP, what is that sweet spot in terms of, it could be, okay, a number of users in a business requires a business to have internal IT, because businesses do want to get to a certain stage before they hire their in-house IT, because a 5-10 people business may not be having that full-time internal IT person. So do you have some understanding, and can you share what good looks like from the ideal customer profile that MSPs can go after?
Sure. First of all, is that usually in a co-managed environment, they've already got the internal IT. So they've decided what their scaling is.
Yeah.
The client already has. From an MSP standpoint, in my opinion, whatever the maximum size of an organization that an MSP feels comfortable supporting, double that you can handle with a co-managed. That's a rule of thumb. Okay. And it kind of depends, because you hit it on the head. Co-managed is a relationship between you and the internal IT persons delivering the IT services to the organization. And they can be very integrated, and they can be casually integrated. And you have to be clear on how you want to approach that. In my opinion, at the end of the day, there's 4 models of MRR, monthly recurring revenue, for MSPs. Okay. The first one is subscription. Subscription is where they're buying 365 licensing or in a virus endpoint licensing or firewall or BCDR, whatever, but the internal IT people are providing the support for it. We don't go after that, but that's the easiest to do. Not the best profit margins, but it's okay. That's number one. The second one, and that's sort of co-managed because the internal IT people are working with you, but you're only providing the licensing. The second one is what we call silo IT. Silo IT is where a subset of IT is split off and you are given responsibility for that. So it could be SQL, BI, email, 365, BCDR, firewall, whatever. But you're that. But there's a line of difference between you and the internal IT. You handle this side, they handle that side. There's very little cooperation between both parties, except when it goes back and forth over the wall. That's a second type of co-managed. The third type, what I call commits, this is the one we love. That's where you take your traditional offering, which includes all of what I call the stance, software tools, methodologies, portals, all the stuff that makes you and your offering specific, and you provide them to the client, but you give the resource and the responsibility to manage and maintain some or all of it to the internal IT. That way, the internal IT is using your PSA, they're using your RMM, they're using your endpoint, they're using all of the tools, and you've trained them, you've supported them, and you're backing them up. Now we are talking about full integration of both departments. They become an extension of you, you become an extension of them, and that's very sticky. So that the client is really fully buying into what you do and the like. That's where we're finding the most success, and it's a good profit margin relative to the resource that we're doing, all that kind of fun stuff. And then the fourth one is just pure MSP, traditional MSP offering where there is no internal IT department. At the end of the day, though, all we're doing in all 4 scenarios, like you said, is we are working with or without the internal IT person so that the client company has the most success and the most secure IT that they need. Yeah. So the mission doesn't change. It's just simply of the players involved and the relationship between the players, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I just want to make sure that I get it right. So what I heard you saying, 4 models. One is subscription, then was a silo, right? And you are kind of given a piece that you are responsible for, and their internal IT is responsible for everything else. But you have a very fine line defined that you are responsible for this as our IT partner, and then co-managed where there are 2. So where they're using your PSA, your RMM, and I think a lot of PSAs nowadays have that module where I think ConnectWise got like Streamline, something where you can have that internal IT department use the ticketing, but that they are just seeing that instance of the ticketing system where it's just kind of a piece for them from the overall PSA. They get kind of their own PSA, but using your instance of PSA. And same thing with the RMM tool that you can create a group for them, which their internal IT will have access to, and that group is just for that business. And that's the one. That's the third one. And the fourth one is a typical MSP model where it could be, hey, do this project for me, do this piece for me, or it's like more of a scope of work based, whatever the scope is. And did I get that right?
Yeah, the third one I call that one commits.
That's called
because
what?
Technically the first 3 are all co-managed models in some way or form. The third one, though, I call commits because that's kind of our brand.
Yeah. So So we have a very kind of one unique situation, and I want to understand that where would that roll up, which category? So we have a staffing company here for like 400 people staffing company, and they have, I think, 4 staff members. And then we have another event management company. So part of our MSP, as you know, we are MSP in New York City as well. And this company has a branch office here, but their major operation is in close to Madison, Wisconsin, and very large event management company. I think it's in the top 10 in the US. They have many internal IT people. So these two companies, while we have other co-managed engagements, but these two companies have taken one full-time person who is on our payroll, but that person is kind of really check in, check out with their internal IT, because they just wanted a resource, a full-time person. And it's more like a staff aug.
Staff aug.
Here. Yeah. So where would that fit in?
So that would actually be more of a silo to a certain degree. Well, actually, no. See, I don't know many MSPs who just do pure staff augmentation. You could almost make the claim that it's a subscription to a human being. That sounds horrible. But that's essentially where you're basically saying that this resource is going to be allocated to the client, and they're going to be working on whatever resources or whatever priorities the client has. If that person is not bringing any of the tools, any of the things that you guys have, so they're not using your RMM, their PSA, or anything along those lines, then I would say they're not really a co-met, so they're not really number 3. I would actually almost call them a subscription.
Okay, now that makes sense. They are paying for a monthly payment is for a resource, and you do your math. What's this costing you, and what you're billing for that resource. Now,
I really hate the idea of calling a human being a subscription service or the like, but it actually kind of makes sense from the model standpoint.
Yeah, staffing subscription. And that's the business model that we are in. As a MSP to a lot of other MSPs, we have 300 MSPs. They have subscribed full-time staff from us. So while they're sitting in our Philippines or India office, but we charge them based on headcount, a monthly fee. But these engineers are dedicated to MSP. So it's a very similar situation that MSP is doing the same thing, but with a small business. Yeah. Now, okay. So my another question now. Let's talk about barrier to entry. So we were discussing before this podcast that a lot of MSPs they probably have. They're doing co-managed IT in some shape or form. Right. But that happened because they happened to have an opportunity, and they availed that opportunity, and they are now kind of doing co-managed IT. But there are very few MSPs where they have a strategic business plan for co-managed IT. Now, my question is, why? Why there are not enough MSPs doing this? What do you see? What do you see as a barrier to entry for MSPs for this market? And what are your recommendations? What they should do to kind of overcome or to break that barrier?
Sure. Well, one thing is that I think is happening is we are all using very kind of an older marketing model and sales model. And the marketing and sales model is essentially this: we are the coolest resource you will ever hire or pay for. We will solve all your problems. Your current status quo is horrible. You've probably been hacked and you don't even know it. In other words, talk about things as status quo is unacceptable. And whoever's currently delivering your status quo in terms of IT is responsible or irresponsible. And we're the only ones who can solve your problem. Okay. And most MSPs, and this included us until about a year ago, most MSPs just love to talk about themselves. We love to talk about what we do, how good we are, how cool we are, how great we are. put yourself in the shoes of the internal IT person. If you're hearing that message, if you're reading that website, if you're doing all that, we're out to get your job. We're out to replace you, because that's what the industry was based on when it was created, is we can do it better than they can. Mm-hmm. And so you've created this adversarial relationship without even talking to the person. And I think to a certain degree, and then you go with all the mindsets, all the sales process, all the materials, all of them, especially the ones that are so focused on fear, uncertainty, and doubt, are all talking about what a lousy job the current internal IT person is doing, or persons are doing. And that just creates an adversarial relationship. You're already behind. And if you have one little page on your site that says, but we'd love to partner with you, not very effective. One of the things that we did was we adopted big time the story brand concept. The story brand concept is quit talking about yourself, talk about the hero, talk about the hero of the story, and the hero of the story is the client. You want them to be productive. You want them to be amazingly successful. You want these things to happen, and we can partner with your internal IT to help make that happen.
Yeah. So in this case, what I'm hearing you say is that our customer should be that hero, and especially like when I'm putting things in my like overall context of our MSP. Number one, Bob, is that our top revenue generating customers are co-managed IT, because what we see is that they're bigger businesses and their budgets are bigger. And just our average deal size is bigger there. And the second is that what we have done very successfully with these businesses is, rather than just having the business owner relationship, we had the IT manager, director who reports to the CEO there, the main hero, internal IT hero. We make them look good in their manager's eyes. And the way we do it is that really doing everything that we need to do behind the scene. We are the backstage people, they are the front stage people, so that whatever we are doing, our job is to make that IT manager, director happy, and make that IT manager their business hero. And so letting them take the credit, and we doing the backstage work so that they look good. And as a result, they are a lot more motivated and driven to do business with us. To your point, then we're not coming across as threat to them and their job. We are coming across as collaborator who are there to add value to them so that they can add better value to their business.
Absolutely. You're hitting it on the head. And the nice thing is you can have that conversation with the internal IT person and then split over and have the same conversation with the CEO, and then back to the IT person, then back to the CEO. And you don't have to reset your brain in any way, because you're still talking about bringing value to the client organization.
Yeah. Yes. And so we did talk about a little bit of that business, the business size that normally is the right like range for MSPs. I want to talk about that a little bit, because a lot of MSPs that I talk to, they're like, Sunny, I don't even know, like, what is the ideal customer profile? You mentioned the formula that if my sweet spot right now is 100 people, businesses that I'm managed IT for, and I just double that. Now, my internal IT or co-managed IT ideal customer profile, I can say, okay, maybe 200 people company. And is there any other, so can you talk to me a little bit more there to help MSPs identify the right market so they can talk to their researchers and marketing team that, hey, give me a list of businesses that fit this profile?
Sure. So first of all, before we start assessing the customers, let's assess ourselves.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we often hear, and Sunny, you just did this, is we hear a lot of the larger MSPs talking about co-managed as in these much larger organizations with management and all that. So you end up with the smaller MSPs going, well, I can't do that. And that's okay. There's still opportunities there. because there are, for every one of the companies like you're talking about, there's 100 manufacturing companies that have one lonely IT person. And so the smaller MSP can go after and really rescue that person from their lonely space, where they get no help, no support, no nothing. And you can still be the hero to those smaller organizations. So there's opportunities there. So bottom line is, you take an assessment of yourself. What are those resources that you could really bring to a small, medium business internal IT? So in other words, if you're not a CIO level person, you don't have that experience, and it's okay. Not all of us do. Don't pretend like you have to say that you do. Look for the smaller organizations that have 1-2 person IT shops. So because you just need to be the few steps ahead of them and to help them. And there's enough virtual CIO resources out there on the web for you to help you get past that. So in that case, you would look for organizations, number one, that actually value best practices. Okay. So if you talk to an internal IT organization that have jury-rigged their own thing, they haven't upgraded in 10, 15 years, and they're not going to, and they want help in co-managing this 20-year-old dinosaur, run, don't walk, because that's a money pit. Because 9 times out of 10, they're that way because they don't want to spend any money. That includes on you. If, however, there's a manufacturing, let's take that same situation where they realize they're way behind and they realize they need to speed up, and that includes their internal IT people. Oh, those are great. Yeah. Those are great because you can come in and help guide them to where they need to be, and you'll be that, I usually hate this term, but it's great now, that trusted business and technology advisor who can move them forward. Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And I think I love the idea of, your recommendation in terms of assessing your capabilities first, and then so understanding that, okay, what are my capabilities? And then kind of do that mapping with your ideal customer profile. Because, let's face it, a lot of bigger businesses or at certain point, they are looking for more of, a different type of managed IT provider, Accentures of the world, and a lot of other companies are there, NTT Data, where they're using ServiceNow. Their client is using ServiceNow, and that market is already it's different market, and it's different capability that will serve that market. So understanding your own, doing your self-assessment as a business and capabilities, and then aligning those capabilities to add value to that internal IT. So understanding that and creating your own version of ICP or ideal customer profile, and then having some kind of marketing plan, which you are great at, by the way, with all the videos and everything that you do with the story brand. And another thing that you mentioned was they asked, you answer. And so having then taking that world-class content creation and adding it to your marketing plan for demand generation, and then having that lead closed, and then using your capabilities to deliver on those commitments. Yeah. And so can you talk to me about that a little bit? I know you do a lot of fun stuff online with the video assets creation and sharing with the world. And you did mention, like, they asked, you answered, and story brand. I want to leave that information with our viewers, that what are you using that you recommend they can use to kind of help their brand? Sure. First of all, one of the first things, and this kind of gets to that whole what's your client look like. One of the first things is what's your superpower? What is it that your organization does best from a client perspective? Mm-hmm. That you can and spend some time in a dark room, spend some time with friends, talk to your clients, get a feel for that. And it can't be something like, we provide good customer service, because everyone is going to say that. But what is it? And to me, one of the most compelling definitions of a good superpower is it will turn some people off. In other words, there's some people who will read that and go, well, that's not us. We don't want that. But once you have that superpower, then take a look from a marketing standpoint, from a story standpoint, from a journey standpoint. How do you maximize the effective communication of that to potential clients? Because you don't want more leads. You want the best leads possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because what the only thing worse than not signing up a great prospect is signing up a lousy one.
Yeah. And how can people learn more about that concept of they ask, you answer? Is it a book? Is it a podcast? What people can do to learn more?
So we're basically doing three things right now. First of all, we're doing every day on my LinkedIn, we're posting a video every business day. Some of them are business. Some of them are, I have no idea where we came up with this topic, but we do that every business day. We just posted our 400th one about 2 weeks ago. So we're doing that to basically raise visibility, raise connections, all of that good fun stuff. We also then do monthly webinars. We're doing one, I think, tomorrow that's talking about IT budgeting that appeals both to CEOs and internal IT folks. I love the Story brand. And I think it's the storybrand.com. I love, which is the whole hero journey. I love the Story brand in terms of marketing concepts and sales process concepts. We've completely redone the way we do things over the past year. And I just, as Sunny was saying, I just finished reading the book, They Ask, You Answer, which is very much based on content marketing. And we're in the process of really adapting some of our content delivery or content generation to focus on that. The bottom line is we want to be extremely open in terms of our communication of here's value, here's valuable content, here's valuable information. We want to be just as open in terms of talking about why we may not be a great fit as we do about why we may be a great fit. And right now, our plan is to really hit the ground running on that in Q1. We're going to be hiring a content creator, internal content creator, hopefully between now and the end of the year. I just think this is a great way to work on markets such as cybersecurity, such as some of the new compliance requirements, such as co-managed IT, such as work from anywhere. All of these opportunities that are very, very scary, not only to potential client leadership and management, but also to the internal IT folks, because they don't know a lot of this stuff. So these are all great opportunities and great resources, I think.
Okay, amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your very, very valuable insights and a lot of resources. And the need of the hour right now is cybersecurity, like having the right strategy and making sure that you are able to identify new markets. And, the way, Bob, the entire MSP market is consolidating, a lot of small, medium-sized business industries, not only MSP, but PE money coming into a lot of other small, medium-sized businesses, and that consolidation happening. We see with our customers every other day that there is someone getting consolidated. So though the business overall, demographics are changing, and we want to make sure that co-managed IT, which is a lot more potential. There's a great opportunity there for MSPs to grow using co-managed IT strategy. And thank you so much for sharing and coming here as my guest. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.